Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a deep look at one of the most dramatic moments of the war so far, Ukraine's bold strike that left the Crimea Bridge in ruins and sent shockwaves far beyond the battlefield. What happened here is not just about concrete and steel, but about strategy, psychology, and the shifting balance of power in a conflict that continues to reshape the region. For years, the Crimea Bridge stood as more than a transport route. It was a symbol of control, permanence, and confidence. It connected Crimea directly to Russia and represented the idea that this territory was locked in and untouchable. When news emerged that the bridge had been severely damaged, it challenged that belief instantly. The strike did not come out of nowhere. It followed months of pressure, intelligence gathering, and a steady campaign aimed at weakening Russian logistics and morale. Ukraine had made it clear that Crimea was not off limits, and the bridge was often mentioned as a critical vulnerability. Still, many believed it was too heavily protected to be seriously hit. That assumption collapsed the moment images and reports began to circulate. Smoke rising over the bridge, sections damaged or destroyed, traffic halted, and confusion spreading rapidly. The immediate impact was disruption, but the deeper effect was psychological. A line that once felt permanent suddenly looked fragile. Shortly after the strike, reactions poured in from every direction. Inside Russia, official statements tried to downplay the damage, emphasizing repairs and continuity. At the same time, unofficial voices online showed anger, shock, and disbelief. The bridge had been marketed as invulnerable, and now it was visibly broken. In Ukraine, the tone was very different. The strike was framed as a legitimate military action against a strategic target. Officials emphasized that the bridge played a central role in supplying Russian forces and sustaining their presence in Crimea and southern Ukraine. From this perspective, hitting it was both logical and necessary. The military significance of the bridge cannot be overstated. It served as a key artery for moving troops, equipment, fuel, and ammunition. Damaging it complicated supply routes and forced Russian logistics to rely on longer, more vulnerable alternatives. Even temporary disruption created disruption across multiple fronts. Beyond logistics, the strike carried symbolic weight. The bridge had been used in propaganda for years, featured in speeches and celebrations. Its damage struck at the narrative of absolute control. Symbols matter in war, and this one cracked loudly. International reactions were cautious but telling. Western officials avoided dramatic language, focusing instead on Ukraine's right to defend itself. Analysts quickly pointed out how sophisticated the operation appeared, suggesting careful planning and coordination. The strike reinforced perceptions of Ukraine's growing capability. At the same time, concerns about escalation surfaced. The bridge is a sensitive target, and some worried that such an attack could provoke harsher responses. These concerns highlighted how every major move in this conflict carries risks far beyond the immediate battlefield. What made the strike particularly striking was its timing. It came at a moment when many observers believed the front lines were relatively stable. Instead, Ukraine demonstrated that pressure could be applied in unexpected ways, far from the trenches and defensive lines. The operation also highlighted the evolving nature of warfare. Precision strikes, intelligence-driven targeting, and asymmetric tactics are increasingly shaping outcomes. Large, static infrastructure, once thought secure, is now exposed in ways that were hard to imagine decades ago. As more details emerged, attention turned to how the strike was carried out. While specifics remained classified or contested, it was clear that overcoming the bridge's defenses required advanced planning. This fed into broader discussions about Ukraine's access to technology, training, and intelligence support. Russian responses focused on restoration and retaliation. Crews moved quickly to assess damage and begin repairs. State media emphasized resilience and continuity, aiming to project strength. Yet the very need for such messaging suggested that the blow had landed deeper than officials wanted to admit. The strike also affected civilians, especially those relying on the bridge for travel and goods. Traffic disruptions and delays created frustration and uncertainty. This human dimension added another layer to the event, reminding everyone that infrastructure attacks ripple outward in complex ways. From a strategic standpoint, the message was clear. Crimea is not a secure rear area. Any assumption that it could function as a safe logistical hub was now questionable. This forced Russian planners to rethink deployments and defenses across the region. For Ukraine, the strike reinforced a broader narrative of initiative. Rather than reacting passively, Kyiv showed it could shake the battlefield and choose the time and place of major actions. That sense of initiative is critical in a prolonged conflict. The bridge strike also influenced morale on both sides. For Ukrainian supporters, it was a moment of validation, proof that bold actions could yield tangible results. For Russian forces and supporters, it raised uncomfortable questions about vulnerability and preparedness. Media coverage amplified these effects. Images of damage circulated rapidly, analyzed frame by frame. Commentators debated implications, often projecting their own expectations onto the event. In the information age, perception travels as fast as reality. As days passed, discussion shifted from the immediate shock to longer-term consequences. Would repairs fully restore capacity? How long would disruptions last? Would this encourage further strikes on infrastructure? Each question pointed to uncertainty ahead. The strike also revived debates about red lines. Targets once considered too risky were now clearly in play. This blurred boundaries and forced all sides to reassess what actions were possible and what consequences might follow. For military analysts, the bridge damage became a case study. It illustrated how high-value targets can be reached even in heavily defended environments. Lessons drawn here will likely influence planning far beyond this conflict. Politically, the event added pressure on leadership in Moscow. Critics questioned how such a strike was allowed to happen. Supporters demanded stronger responses. Managing these internal dynamics became another challenge layered onto an already complex situation. In Kyiv, the strike strengthened confidence, but also raised expectations. Success creates momentum, but it also brings scrutiny. Every future operation will be compared to this moment, judged against the same standard of impact. The broader war context matters here. This strike did not end the conflict, nor did it decide its outcome on its own. Instead, it shifted calculations, changed narratives, and opened new possibilities. In war, such shifts can be as important as territorial gains. As winter and future campaigns loom, the bridge's status remains a focal point. Whether fully repaired or not, it no longer carries the aura of invincibility it once had. That change alone alters strategic thinking. There is also a diplomatic dimension. Allies watching Ukraine saw evidence of capability and resolve. Adversaries saw risk and unpredictability. Both perceptions influenced future decisions on support, pressure, and negotiation. The strike underscored how modern conflicts blend physical and psychological warfare. Destroying infrastructure disrupts movement, but it also disrupts confidence. In this case, the psychological shock may prove just as lasting as the physical damage. Looking ahead, questions remain unanswered. Will similar targets be struck again? How will defenses adapt? Can such actions accelerate a broader shift in the war's trajectory? No one can say for certain, but the bridge strike ensures these questions cannot be ignored. One thing is clear. The event will be remembered as a turning point in how the conflict is perceived. It challenged assumptions held for years and forced a re-evaluation of what is possible. For viewers trying to understand the war, this moment offers insight into its evolving nature. Power is no longer measured only by front lines and troop numbers, but by the ability to disrupt, surprise, and adapt. As the dust settles, the ruins of the Crimea Bridge stand as a stark reminder. No structure, no symbol, and no narrative is beyond reach in a war defined by innovation and determination. This strike did not just damage a bridge. It damaged a sense of certainty. And in conflicts like this, certainty is often the first casualty. That is why Ukraine's bold strike resonates so widely. It speaks to a larger story about resilience, strategy, and the relentless push to change realities once thought fixed. As events continue to unfold, we will keep watching how this moment shapes the next chapter of the war. The bridge may be repaired, but the message sent by its destruction will not be easily undone. Thank you for staying with us through this detailed review. If you found this breakdown helpful, stay tuned for more in-depth analysis as we continue to follow every major development in this evolving conflict.